knowing exactly who your person is, and then knowing like, okay, will they like this? And how do I bring them into that conversation in a better way? To me, that rebrand did not look like it was for the Cracker Barrel customer.
Who are these people?
Yeah.
Right? And what is important to them?
Yeah.
And how can we make sure that our brand is appealing to the people that we want to appeal to?
Language gives intention to intuition. And I love that.
If you want to be intentional and you really want to grow something that's special, right, and worth getting behind, you have to spend the time to add the layers.
I could eat pancakes every day of the week. So
Perfect.
can we get along on that?
We can still get along on that. We can agree on the pancakes.
You're listening to Seasoned Leaders, a podcast about leadership, growth, and the power of hospitality. I'm Adam Guy, and in this episode, we're taking you behind the scenes of our rebrand, why we made the decision, what we learned along the way, and how we're defining who Upper Crust Food Service is in the future.
We are so excited today to have Kristen from Hoot Design Company on the podcast. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I have so much that I want to dive in with you today, but we cannot start this podcast without talking about your dad.
Oh, yeah, he will love that.
Okay, perfect. So we got another viewer out of this, yes. I think, if we mention Steve Graham. So Steve, I'm going to take you all the way back to pre-Upper Crust Food Service to the Upper Crust Bakery. And so if you listen to episode 1, you got a little bit of history about, how the Upper Crust came to be. And it started as this little bakery here in Columbia, Missouri. And I would say one of our very best and most consistent customers was Steve Graham. And, the restaurant business is tough. And there would be days where, things were not going right and I was running all over the place. And he would walk in the door almost every day for lunch with a smile on his face and a good conversation. And to be honest with you, still to this day, I have no idea what he does. I know he works at the university, and I know he's important because he was always dressed perfectly.
He's going to love this podcast.
I'm just telling you. Someone needs to tell me what he does.
We still don't know. Yes, he worked for the university for 32 years.
Okay.
And at the end, he was the vice president of academic affairs for the system.
So that sounds pretty important. So I was right.
Yes.
I mean, he is.
And he
a
is
pretty
an
important
impeccable
guy.
dresser. Yes,
he is.
Very true.
He is. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure we started with that because I think,
Shout out.
I think that the fact that, I see a lot of qualities from Steve and you and working with you. You light up a room, you're kind, you're excited about things. And so through this process, we have used your company, Hoot Design Company, to do our rebrand that we rolled out. And so I want to talk a little bit today about the process and what we went through and sort of how this came to be where, your company partnered up with us to kind of show the world what we think the Upper Crust is really all about.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. What a kind intro. And I know, my dad always was doing that for you as well, was constantly in my ear, like, you got to look up what Adam Guy's doing. It's crazy. This company's growing. You got to, keep in touch with him, look him up, reach out to him. So I just so appreciate you saying that. And I think that that's something that we really do try to do as a whole team is like, we want it to be fun to work with us. This should be fun, right? And it's hard, but it's also fun. And I think that collaborating with our clients is one of the best things that we get to do. Bringing something to life for someone else is just a real honor. So thank you for that intro.
Absolutely. So at Upper Crust, we were at this pivotal place, I think, in our business, and we had grown quickly. For all intents and purposes, the business looked great on the outside. New customers coming on, new employees coming on. The business was growing fast, and I felt like, as the CEO of the business, that honestly the business had kind of started outgrowing the brand. Mm-hmm. And I had that gut feeling inside of me, but I wasn't really sure what to do about it, to be honest with you. I knew that we had more to say than we were saying, that we had more to communicate, that the way that we looked in the world didn't really match maybe who we felt like we were. And so that's when I picked up the phone and called you and said, hey, can you help? And so you were nice enough to say yes, that you guys would be willing to help us out. And so I guess just generally for like a founder that might be watching this or a business owner that might be watching this, like what are some of those signals that I felt as a CEO? Like what do you think some of those signals that a founder might feel that would say, you know what, it might be time for me to think about a rebrand of my business?
Yeah, I think that's so well said. And you see this all the time, especially in founder-led organizations where there's this like incredible quote from Will Guidara with Unreasonable Hospitality about language gives intention to intuition. And I love that because for most founders, it's extremely intuitive, right? You are the brand, you embody the brand because this is like an extension of you. Right. And typically what happens is a team will start to grow beyond the bounds of where they can, garner that from being around you. So when you start to, extend past like people having a lot of touch points with the founder, you often see this kind of breakdown of that intuition. And it is our responsibility as leadership to wrap that up in a way that people can really understand it and embody it. And I think that what we try to do, the value we try to bring is that clarity and emotion. Because without clarity, people can't act, but without emotion, they won't act. And I think that's something a lot of people miss about their own brand. We need to inspire our own team, our own employees, because if we can't inspire them, we certainly won't inspire our customers to take action. And so I think that's like exactly what you were feeling is so natural around, it's grown beyond what I can personally influence and touch,
Man, that resonates with me so well because I wore so many hats in my business, right? And if you're a founder-led business, you wear all the hats, right? Absolutely. You are the accounting team, you are, the sales team, you are the marketing team, you are the operations team. So all of these hats that you wear, and I remember feeling vividly that I had to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? That if I didn't show up, if I didn't have the conversation, that, what we were trying to get across was not going to be, put out there in the way that I wanted it to be. And so this idea that you can use brand to inspire the rest of your team to be able to answer the questions the way, to be on brand, right?
Right.
To be able to have these behaviors that are always going to go back to your core values and what you've built. So that resonates with me a lot. When you talk about a rebrand, though, it doesn't come without risks.
For sure.
Right. There are a lot of risks. And I think that, for me, I was pretty nervous, even though I knew it needed to happen. Because, like you said, there's a lot of pride that you have in what you've built. And are you gonna lose some of that history? Are you gonna lose some of that tradition? Are you gonna lose some of the things that really were going well with your business, right?
Absolutely.
For a pre-rebrand. And so, can you kind of talk me through how you would encourage a founder that knows that this needs to happen, knows that they need to evolve the business, but really is nervous about the steps to take for that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think one thing I always love to say is there's no right or wrong way to tackle this if it's done with intention. So like one of the best things I think about running your own thing, starting your own thing, is getting to make your own rules. So we don't have a prescription on like, this is the way a brand must be. We have a prescription on how to take that inventory and build that, how to discover, how to mine for those truths. So like, if you were to say, I want it to feel like this because this is why I started it or whatever, we're not going to say yes or no on that. I think what is so critical is that it's done intentionally. And I think so many people are not willing to like do the excavation or to take the time. It does take time. We took 2 full days from you, which I know for a lot of founders is like really intense. Bring your team in from out of town. We need your full attention on this, not to mention all of the fallout from a rebrand as far as what has to happen afterwards. But even just to do the excavating, it's pretty surprising to me how many people will push back on that time, because I'm like, well, this has huge implications for you. So if you don't want to take 2 or 3 days out of your schedule, like I'm concerned you don't understand the gravity.
Right.
Another thing that people will say that surprises me is like, it's just not that deep. And that's always shocking to me, because just like you said, it feels like an extension of you. It's your reputation. It's your legacy. So I would argue, it's very much that deep.
Yeah, it's really easy to get caught up in, man, I've got to get through whatever is happening that's front of mind in the business, right?
Right.
And to me, I feel like a lot of businesses can make it a long time just kind of doing the Band-Aid work, right? Without ever going deeper and maybe doing that little bit of surgery that needs to be done that will allow them to really flourish later on.
Absolutely.
So there was a pivotal moment when I, as an entrepreneur, was thinking about this rebrand. And I had a conversation with you when we were kind of deciding, do we want to do this? Do we not want to do this? Is the right thing for our business? And you said some things I thought that were really interesting around what you saw in Upper Crust Food Service that you didn't think that our current brand was showing people, right? So things that you knew to be true about us from being around us,
yes,
that maybe you didn't think we were articulating well in the market. So can you kind of take me through, if you remember back to that conversation at all, some of those things that you saw about Upper Crust? You were like, man, if we could rebrand Upper Crust, this would be such a benefit for them. Yes.
Okay. I think that's so true, because this other thing we love to say that's like this old trope, it's so hard to see the label from inside the jar. It's so hard for the ownership, the leadership, the people that live this every day to be able to say, like, does the outside really match, what we feel inside here?
Right.
Very hard. We have paid to do our someone else did our brand, basically. So I think that that's just a testament to how hard this is to do from the inside. And I think what we experienced, even one of the very first things you had our team do was show up to that conference, your conference. And I think that was so awesome, because to see your people, we were a fly on the wall, to see your people interacting with each other, laughing. You could feel the energy and the fun and the excitement and how much people actually enjoyed each other. So we took away that there was this real fun element of working here, and this warmth to working here, like real relationships that people had. And I think that the perception from the outside, from what we saw through the visuals and also kind of the voice, was that it did feel a little bit more corporate and cold and a little bit more disconnected than the actual experience of being inside Upper Crust. And we thought, okay, we can help you with that. This is what we do all day, every day. We can help you express how you want to make people feel through visuals and voice. That is our zone of genius,
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that was really what did get me over the hump, because I thought to myself, you know what? Kristen is right that how I feel about Upper Crust is, and how people that actually deal with Upper Crust, right? Our partners and our employees and the people that are connected with us, I felt like they felt differently about our brand than maybe people who didn't know us well.
Yeah.
Right. And so we want to be so inviting as a brand to be able to, we talk about this a lot, but to be able to attract the people that you want to attract. Right?
Absolutely.
And so to be able to create a brand and to change things up so that it does attract people that are going to be great partners or great employees for Upper Crust, I think was huge. So once I got over the hump, we moved into sort of this brand discovery process. We said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to see how this goes, and kind of just went in with eyes wide open, and just a willingness to learn about ourselves and learn about the business. And so you mentioned these 2 days that we spent sort of workshopping all of this, and that was called the brand being process. Mm-hmm. So can you kind of walk me through the way that Hoot looks at that brand being process and what that looks like?
Yes. We're super proud of this process we've built over, I feel like it was a long time coming kind of thing. It was part of our process for years, but we really wrapped this up ourselves. We knew that we needed to wrap it up with a concept that people would understand, or at least understand our perspective right out of the gate, which is why we call it the brand being methodology. And we say, because brand is the being and marketing is the doing. And so often we have people come to us who say, I just need a website. Right. I need a brochure, which I find so funny, because how do you want me to write your website? How do you want me to write a brochure? If I just have a copywriter take a crack at this, without doing the excavation, we will not be singing the same song, and doing it in a consistent and authentic way that actually reaches our customers. So like with strategy, it's basically asking people to do that work without strategy.
Sure.
And then they are surprised when it falls flat, when you must take the time to really do this one time, or at least every few years. We are going to take the time to really dig into who is our customer, what is our point of difference, what are we trying to say? And a lot of that starts with brand heart. So I really believe that brand heart is what brings the emotion. You know how I was saying our job is to bring clarity and emotion. Brand heart is where all that emotion comes. That's like the stories, the legends of the brand. How was the brand built? Why do you do it this way? Why should anyone work here over there? And those stories are so critical to building that emotional foundation, which is authentic. It's so important that it's authentic, right? It's coming from you.
Right.
And then we move into positioning, which is the clarity part. What do we really want to be known for? And a huge part of that process is built on who we're for. We have a very specific take on how to approach who you're for. And with yours, actually, it was a little bit different for us because you do have multiple verticals. So what we did with you was slightly different, where we actually designed your bullseye. We always use that metaphor of like, it's like a bullseye, the target customer's right in the center. And then with you guys, we actually put that person in the center, but also built out, I think something like 9 other...
Right.
Yeah.
That was super fun, by the way. We really we learned so much about our partners and our potential partners by going through that process to say, who are these people?
Yeah.
Right. And what is important to them?
Yeah.
And how can we make sure that our brand is appealing to the people that we want to appeal to?
Exactly. Well, and it's so powerful. But this is one of, having your endorsement on that process would be so helpful for us, because this is probably one of the parts we get the most pushback, where people are like, we can't be for one person. This is a huge company. There's no way I can pinpoint one person. But I can promise you, when you do, many decisions fall into place about how to proceed and what decisions to make, where to make investments, because we're thinking of one person, and we're not thinking of their demographics. We're thinking of their psychographics. So I want people to know what keeps their brand advocate, is what we call it, what keeps them up at night.
Right.
What car they drive is only indicative of their belief system. So when we ask about their car, what kind of dog they have, where they live, how much money they make, those are only giving us information about their psychographics, which is what we care about, because that's how we reach them. If we can't, speak to their pain, we won't be able to get them to take action. I think this is a huge missing. A lot of people miss this when they go to do this
and it's
work.
helped us not only in developing our brand, but we've also used it for our sales team, right? And we've used it for our client success team. Because it's like, for our client success team, it's really important for us to know who is the decision maker, right, when it comes to renewing contracts. And if you need to first identify who that is, and then also like, what is important to them, right? How should we be communicating to that person? For our sales team, it's the same way, right? So for us, let's say on our Greek vertical, if we're selling to a house director, that's a different type of a sell than selling to a national organization, or even to a local corporation board who might be volunteering in their role instead of being their full-time job. Just understanding those. And when we were able to read all those different profiles and sort of like that creation, knowing that each person is unique, right? Nobody's going to be exactly like the brand advocate. But there were so many of our employees were like, yes, that's exactly, I can see that in that customer. I can see that in that partner. And so that was a really nice validating thing for us once we came out of those.
Okay, so cool.
Was to see that happen. But I think that we also got caught in what you talked about earlier as a brand. We had a logo, right? We had some colors. And it was really easy for us to literally use any designer that we wanted to call, go online, find a designer, go to Fiverr, say, hey, here's my project, right? Somebody knocks it out for a few $100 and you have your deliverable that you think you need. And I think that brands miss so much if that's what they're doing.
Yes.
Because to your point, it's like all you're getting is that one deliverable to help you with that one thing.
Right.
And then your next deliverable that's made by, somebody else on Fiverr is not necessarily, has a different flavor, a different feel. And to your point, going back to the voice, like that's one of the biggest things I think that we got out of brand being is like understanding our voice. And I think it's no different than, it almost felt like therapy for business.
Yes.
Okay.
I say that all to the right audience. They like that.
Okay. Well, for me, it's like, as I think about my personal life and like trying to evolve, to better understand like who I am.
Yeah.
And going through that process, like that's been great for me personally, right? To evolve as a human. And then to see going through this brand being process felt like I was doing the same thing for my business, right? Like we were
100%.
We were finding our voice. We were understanding who we were so that we could tell others who we were.
Right.
And sometimes like I felt like going into there, like we maybe didn't even know 100% of who we were until we were done with that process.
Well, and I think that's so common. And, you probably did, but is everyone else saying it the same way? And I think what's so interesting about that process is like, of course we're going to help you define how you speak. Are we funny? Are we subdued? Are we sophisticated? What level do we write at? We also want to make sure, what are you saying? Right? Like I know for you guys, it's about the hospitality that you provide and how much you care. And so making sure that we're all singing that same song because, people who work in these different verticals like camp versus Greek, versus something else, they're going to want to kind of march their own drum. And what happens is like, instead of rowing in the same direction, we're all rowing, in slightly different directions, which it really affects the, I would say the power of the brand and how fast you can move forward and just the alignment that we're never going to get from the team until we take the time to lay it out.
Absolutely. I think the last thing that I would say about that brand being process is that brands that don't go through that, if you are only putting out individual deliverables, you have a risk of it not actually being authentic. Mm-hmm. And I think that going through the brand discovery process, it allowed us to say, like, we want to put things out that actually represent how we feel and who we are. Right?
Absolutely.
Not just what we think might work in the short term today to get this initiative completed, but like, is this actually coming from a place that after they see the marketing and they meet us, are those two things going to feel connected? Right?
Yes.
Because I think that oftentimes happens. It's kind of like if you get to meet your celebrity that you really like.
Yeah.
And you know them from the movie, right? Or you know them from the TV show. And then you finally get to meet them. All right.
Yeah.
Our producer here on the show, Travis, he knows this. I'm not going to mention the celebrity's name, but I'm just going to tell you that I met a celebrity one time that I really kind of looked up to and admired prior to meeting them.
Yeah.
Okay. My interaction with them was them walking to the front of a valet line, waiting to end the event, disregarding everyone else that was in line waiting, and pushing themselves all the way to the front of the line to get their car.
Yeah.
Right? And then really kind of having an attitude about it, right?
Right.
And I just watched this happen and I thought to myself, man, that is so disappointing that their brand doesn't actually match the reality of who they are.
I mean, I've never thought of that analogy before, but I think that's so true. Like, you want to feel like, of course, this is what you feel like, look like, sound like, because it feels so natural, And I just think a huge missing part of that is also when you are training your team, right? So like we want them to be able to embody what you authentically believe about hospitality and things. And unless we communicate to people in a really clear way, that's not going to happen. They're not going to get it through osmosis, especially not when we become bigger.
Right.
And one thing I think is worth saying about, like, people probably think I'm like anti-Fiverr or something. I am not. I think that what the power of doing a brand being like process is that now whoever you go to, they have all the tools they need.
Right.
Yeah. So you can go to Fiverr. You can leverage AI. when you take the time to create kind of like the brain, the ethos, and you lay it all out there, now the doing becomes so much easier. And that's something that I think people, we're not trying to handcuff you to us forever. We only want you to work with us because you want to. And we are huge on making sure you have everything you need to be successful moving forward. And I think that's another huge thing people miss about brand. If you want to be able to move faster, more efficiently, and usually less expensively, invest in brand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we moved from this brand discovery process. We went through the brand being for Upper Crust, and what it revealed was what I think is kind of like this brand heart, right? And so this is more of like that emotional center of the business. And so that kind of, let's talk a little bit about, like, once you understand what the heart of the business is, how could a founder then use that information to guide their decisions, and also to make sure that their employees and anyone who represents that company understand like on-brand behaviors?
Yes. I mean, that is a huge part of what we love to help walk people through. We really want this to be like a framework for decision making. And I think of it kind of like, this is potentially an inappropriate metaphor, but I love
We love inappropriate metaphors.
We'll see. We'll see if this gets cut. But like, to me, I feel like it's kind of like religion, right? Because you want it to be a framework for decision making, which is kind of how we lean on religion, and it needs to inspire. Right? I need to get some chills. I need to feel called to follow my leaders within this organization. And because I feel alignment, just like you're saying with like meeting that celebrity and feeling like this, let down because they weren't who you believe them to be. That's why the excavating does need to be so authentic, so that we can walk the talk. And when we call people to these behaviors, we also are modeling them and everything. That's what I think is so cool about this process. And again, why I would say we do not prescribe what your brand is, only how to get there. And so I think when it comes to, making decisions through the brand, I lean on mine all the time. Our vision is to design a world in which people can become their best selves through work. So I'm constantly running the way that we work and who we work for through that lens. So like I want clients that challenge us. If it becomes a toxic relationship, it's easy for me to make that call, right? Because I can say no one is becoming their best selves through work at my office when we're in a toxic client relationship. It also helps me. One of my favorite things to help people do is build out like interesting benefits. So like for us, if we think you can become your best self through work, how are we putting our money where our mouth is there? Well, one of the things we do, we want to cover 50% of mental health, no matter how much. There's no cap on that. If you need support, we are there for you. So you can show up as your best self, right? One other thing that we do is this thing called life support, where we reimburse people up to $250 a month for anything that allows them to buy back their time. Because I want them to think of work as this tool for self-actualization. Well, that can be really exhausting. So maybe I have a little bit less juice on the weekends. So how can I like lighten your load there?
And what I hear you saying too, that I think is really powerful, is that you can go through the brand process and you can create a brand, but if you don't actually implement practical things within your business that reflect your values and reflect what your brand says it is, then you're going to have a really hard time creating the culture that you want to create, because you're going to be seen a little bit as a hypocrite, honestly.
Yes.
Right? It's like, oh, you said you do all these things. And as Jack and I are building this business together, that's one of the things that we love about putting content out, is that it holds us accountable.
Yeah.
Right? We're up here saying to the world, anyone that has an internet connection, here's what we are about at Upper Crust Food Service.
Yes.
And we want you to hold us accountable to that, whether you're an employee, whether you're a partner, whether you're just in one of our industries that we serve. So I think it's really important that, that I think is one of the risks. If you are not ready to actually live out this brand heart, you probably shouldn't go through the process and just keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, 100%. Because I think it's way worse to say something and not be able to back it up than to not say anything at all. And I thought about that with you guys with We Show Up. That is a brave statement, right?
Right.
Because, you could totally run the risk of like something happens, someone can't get there.
Right.
And you have people, rubbing it in your face like, oh, we show up, And I think that real brand takes bravery, good brand, legacy brands. And what's interesting to me is everybody knows the brands they love. Almost every time someone throws out a brand they love, I can immediately say like brave, brave, brave.
Right.
Nike, Patagonia, all these places these legendary brands that people always reference as being like such powerhouses. One, it's intentional. That did not happen by accident. And two, there is bravery there. There's something deeper, and there's something pushing them to, to that higher calling that's not just like the bottom line.
And I think when you put yourself out there, one thing that you don't have to say to yourself is, we have to be perfect.
Yes.
Right? I think you just have to be honest.
Exactly.
And you just have to be transparent. And the reality is like, you are going to make some missteps. Every business is going to make some missteps. I cannot control what all 2,500 of my employees are going to say or do, regardless of how well we internally communicate our brand heart.
Absolutely.
So the reality is like, this is not going to be a perfect science. But I think as long as people know that it's genuine, right, and that you care about it, and I think also just admitting when you do fall short on those things, then that I think is what can ultimately push you forward.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's so true. Of like, what I always say to people about that is like, this is so hard. Culture building is so hard. Let's at least give you the best shot.
Right.
I'm not telling you this is going to make your culture issues go away or management will become easy. I always say management's the hardest thing I've ever done outside of parenting. But let's give you the best shot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to transition now to the hardest part of this process for me.
Okay.
All right. Because it wasn't all easy. All right. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows.
Totally.
I had a lot of anxiety when we got to the visual identity portion of our rebrand. And so the visual identity for Upper Crust, if you want to think, for any brand rather, if you want to think logos, right, colors, you may be able to elaborate on that better, but just sort of like how people would actually literally visually see you. We had the same logo since we had founded the company 15 years ago, and we'd had the same color scheme for 15 years. I mean, I had my closet was full of it, right? Every sign we have, like, think about the tens of thousands, probably over those years, hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? That had been invested.
Yes.
I mean, for our company, if you just think about getting uniforms every year out for 2,000 plus people, right? That's hundreds of thousands of dollars with your logo on it.
Yes.
Years of conferences where we've given out swag and all these things. And now all of a sudden we're sitting in a room, and I have my friends from Hoot telling me, hey, we would like to present you with some alternative ways that your company could be viewed visually.
Yes.
That was pretty frightening.
Yes. Well, and again, kudos to you for at least just letting us present it, because we even thought you did come in being like, I'm totally open to a rebrand. I don't know if I want to change the visuals, which we hear that a lot, and we really respect the investment that companies have made in how they visually show up and all the hard goods that go along with that. So it is not something we always recommend. We do take that recommendation very seriously, even though most designers, they want to put their spin on it. In your case, I do think it was very strategic. It was a strategic recommendation based on how you felt like you were being viewed externally and how it felt on the inside. They didn't match up. And so I think it was a great moment to really reflect. There's just this other great quote that I absolutely love. Design is the silent ambassador of the brand. And it's happening for us on so many levels. We're experiencing visuals completely subconsciously all the time. And so I think by, just making sure that it is a strategic choice, that took a lot of bravery on your part to say, okay, I'm at least willing to look at these, which we did sense your open-mindedness.
I was curious. Who wouldn't be curious when somebody says, like, hey, I'm going to give you a complete makeover. Let's see what you're going to look like afterwards.
And
of
it
course
was
you're
quite
going to
a
be curious
departure.
to see. Yes, it was.
Yeah. So I think that, and I think what was so funny about that, I've never had a client that I recall being so like, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to do this. I'm pretty sure we're not changing visuals. So we were kind of like,
I was setting the expectation.
Yes. Yeah, you did a great job of that. I think we were like, you know what? Let's take our best shot. And Bree, our creative director, put in a lot of work on kind of setting the table, no pun intended, on like why a rebrand is worth it. Kind of, we did some research on like, rebrands you might be familiar with to kind of show you like it can be very worth it. And so, yeah, we ended up showing you 2 options, I know, which we also don't typically do. One that felt a little bit safer and one that felt a little bit more out there.
Right.
Yeah. And it was so good that Adam cried and said, let's do it. That didn't happen. He didn't cry in that meeting, but I do feel like it was a fairly swift, like 1 week or something of you mulling it over.
We had some employees that almost did cry. And you know what? Honestly, it actually was a really kind of cool moment for our brand, because as we started rolling this out and I could see the pride, that was like pride on display, right? This history of like, man, I've been with this brand for so long and I care so much about all this work that I've done. And is changing this visual identity going to change, all these things that I think are true about this brand? And so I think as we went through that process, it also made me realize that marketing is twofold. There is external marketing that goes to the partners, to your communities that you serve, to the world. And then there's this internal marketing and this internal branding that has to happen inside the organization.
Yes.
And so I think that was one of the things that was really interesting about the process for me, was that we spent just as much time on how are we going to communicate this internally as we did externally. And we were very, I think, conscientious of making sure that our people saw things first.
Yes.
Right? That we had internal buy-in before we asked them to have that external buy-in. It's no different than like a major life-changing thing happening.
For sure.
There's the stages. I don't think it's stages of grief when it comes to logo, but stages of acceptance, right? Of this and
change management.
Change management, 100%. And we're an organization that has changed a lot, right? We've had multiple acquisitions. We've gotten into new markets. The company continues to grow and evolve, and we didn't want to lose that entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Yeah.
And so I think this new logo has been really well received. I think that it really showcases who we are in a more updated and modern way. And so I think that for the most part now, there's a pretty big consensus that it's a positive thing and it's gone really well.
That is the power of brand, is that, it is playing the long game. It's having the foresight to know, like, what do I want this to be in 5 years? Because this isn't going to turn around or change overnight. And the way people feel about it is one of those intangible things, hard to put an ROI on, right? But at the end of the day, we know engagement and pride is huge for the bottom line.
Yeah. And we've seen so much momentum now with changing the logo. What's nice too is in the visual identity, it allowed us to review every piece of marketing material that was out there, right? It required us to go back and review everything that we had that was out. And not only did we change the logo, it wasn't just about swapping the logo out on those marketing materials. It was about saying, wait, no, we actually have to redesign this entire marketing piece, because not only is the logo different, but the voice isn't our new, our right voice either.
Right.
And so that was really a fun process to be able to just make sure that all of our current collateral was all updated. And I really saw a lot of momentum there. I think our team got really excited, and they started identifying things. Oh, hey, we got to target this thing. We got to update this thing. And so that was really fun to see. The timing of our branding was very interesting. And we've talked about branding that doesn't always go well.
Yes.
So I'd say a couple months prior to our launch of our rebrand, there was the infamous Cracker Barrel rebrand. And I will be lying if I didn't say to my wife a couple of times, okay, I am really nervous that, this Cracker Barrel launch did not go well.
Right.
Right. CEOs in the hot seat.
Right.
And here I am doing going through on the surface, the same process.
Right.
Hopefully a different process, but same thought process, right? A rebrand. Gosh, I hope ours doesn't turn out to be the same as that. So for those that would be nervous about seeing some brands that have done it the wrong way, what could we learn from something like that Cracker Barrel experience, and what should we be thinking about?
And I have so much compassion for all the people that worked on that. I think I read it was like at least 18 months of work and everything. And so hate to throw shade on that, because that keeps me up at night thinking I'm a part of a project like that. I think, from a, very far view of what I can see happened is I think there was not enough of that dedication to the customer with Cracker Barrel, because I think that honestly, I loved that work. I loved the rebrand. I don't go to Cracker Barrel. And I really wouldn't, I'm someone who wants to shop local. I have a local business. I'm always wanting to, invest in the local restaurant scene here and everything. And so I think knowing exactly who your person is, and then knowing okay, will they like this? And how do I bring them into that conversation in a better way? To me, that rebrand did not look like it was for the Cracker Barrel customer.
Right.
And I think we see this a lot with, we have people come to us and they say okay, right now our main customer is a 65-year-old, man or something. What about younger people? And that's tough. That's tough. How do we create something that both those demographics will be attracted to? How do we help you move into the future with a younger demo? Those things need to be taken so seriously, those conversations, which I am sure this was very expensive and a lot of time was put into that. To me, at first glance, it looks like an abandonment of the Cracker Barrel customer who wouldn't like anything about that rebrand. Right. How do you honor the heritage of a brand like that while also bringing it into the future, knowing who that customer is?
Yeah. I think that gives a lot of founders and business owners out there a good framework to think about rebrand. And I think it's important that we learn from the ones that do well and ones that don't, and also realize that every rebrand is going to be unique.
For sure.
And so I think as long as you stay authentic to who you really are, I think at the end of the day that, a rebrand can really go well. Now, you mentioned you weren't a Cracker Barrel customer. I want to make sure that we can still be friends. You like biscuits and gravy, right?
Oh, I'm not a biscuits and gravy person, but I do love.
Podcast is over.
I'm a pancake person, so it's not like I'm eating salad at brunch or anything atrocious like that.
All right.
I could eat pancakes every day of the week. So
Perfect.
Can we get along on that?
We can still get along on that. We can agree on the pancakes. So we brought ourselves all the way through sort of the process that Upper Crust went through, from identifying that our growth had, the company had outgrown the brand. Mm-hmm. All the way through discovering our brand heart, the new logo, the visual identity. So I want to just kind of close today with thinking about what does this mean for Upper Crust moving forward? Right. Yeah. So all of this is done now. I think that your brand is always evolving. Mm-hmm. So one thing I think is that this was just the first step. Mm-hmm. And it's not just about creating a book, right? It's not just about putting this all down on paper one time. For me, I think it's going to be about living this out every day is ultimately and creating consistency is ultimately what's going to create the culture that we want long term. But for Upper Crust, how should our partners feel? How do you want Upper Crust partners to feel when they see this updated brand? Mm-hmm.
I think I really want people to feel that, of course, this is so in alignment with everyone that I know that's there. Right. And I think that was so interesting in some of our early conversations, how you said that people describe you guys as warm, fun, a great place to work, the type of people that always show up, that go the extra mile. And I think making sure that is kind of codified, right? So when we bring on new people, they don't have to hang out with us for 6 months. We can train them in a way that is intentional and clear. And then also for our partners to feel like this matches exactly, when I see these materials and then I experience you in my kitchen, in my building, that is, I feel a total alignment there. That is what brands should do for people. So I think it's a huge leveling up, but it is slow, right? It's like
Right.
brick by brick by brick. But I can tell you, if you don't do this, you will never get there. So I can promise people who do this, it will be slow and it will be hard, but you will get there versus, if we don't put in the work, well, I can promise you're not going to get there.
Right. And in today's world, there's so many quick fixes, right?
Yes.
There's so many things with AI and, I can create, we could have just created a new logo in 25 seconds.
Absolutely.
Right? And had options. But to your point, I think that if you want to be intentional and you really want to grow something that's special, right, and worth getting behind, you have to spend the time to add the layers, right? You have to spend the time to really think about it, to not rush through it. And I'm the type of person that loves to get through things. I love to get through tasks and push for outcomes. But I think that this process has really been nice because it's required us to slow down, right? It's required us to really think about who we are, who we want to be, and how we're going to become the company that we want to become in the future. And so this entire process has been really, really helpful. And I think today you have helped, a lot of founders, business owners, to be able to think about brand and how much more important it is than just a logo, and how much more important it is than how much more important it is than we necessarily give it credit for sometimes. And spending that time, spending that investment to get it right is what ultimately will pay dividends down the road. So,
well, thank you so much. What a great, endorsement from you guys. So can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. So you are involved in almost every project at Upper Crust that goes out. So what are you excited about for the future?
Oh, that is such a good question. I feel like this is a surprising answer that's going to come from me, but I love the way your guys' social is going. And I don't always think social is a good investment for everybody, but for your demo, I think it is. And what I see coming out on social for you guys is so dynamic, so fun. It has such a different tone than what it was before. And I think what you're saying is just powerful. Right. So I'm really excited to kind of see how that grows and goes because you do have a lot more you have a younger market than some of our clients.
And it's such a great way, you mentioned our We Show Up slogan that we came up with. And all of these marketing initiatives that you're helping us with are just such great ways to get these stories out.
Right.
We have hundreds of stories of the ways that our teams are showing up for our partners, showing up for each other, showing up in their communities.
Yeah.
And so to your point, whether it's social or it's blog or it's podcast or video, whatever it is, it's I'm really excited to be able to continue to start telling those stories. I think it's really, really powerful. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
This has been a ton of fun, and I think a lot of people are going to get some great value out of it.
Well, thank you so much.
Today, you heard the story behind our rebrand, not just how it came together, but why it matters. In the next episode of Seasoned Leaders, we'll shift the focus to the people behind the brand, how we think about building teams, creating opportunities, and bringing our culture to life every single day. Until next time, thanks for listening, and stay seasoned.